And if trauma is the cause of their anxiety, and the anxiety is the cause of their addiction, let's say, then by clearing their trauma, the primary reason the anxiety is there is gone. So the anxiety goes away. And if there's no anxiety, then there's really no need to drink or take drugs or overeat. The way we think affects how we feel, and that influences how we behave. And that everything in our mind, the way we think about it, whether it's imagination or memory, has a structure to it. So there's certain visual elements and auditory elements and so on. And by changing details or elements of that structure, the entire experience changes. And so one way to do that is through language. Another way to do it is through imagery. So for example, if someone has a particular traumatic memory, usually there's something about the way they're seeing it in their mind that is evoking a strong and negative emotion. So, I mean, I'm simplifying here, but by changing certain elements visually in their memory, in the way they think about it, it can often immediately change how they feel. And with a little bit of repetition, which sometimes only takes a few minutes, it can, in many cases, have long-term, potentially permanently changing how that person responds to that thought. The thought, the memory, the image, which then also changes how they respond to what would be a trigger. I often say a trigger is meaningless if there's no bullets in the gun. So if someone has a trigger, like being around men with beards, let's say, because a man with a beard once was mean to them when they were younger, by doing some work through, hypnotic language, so it could be through a hypnosis session or through just conversation or a visualization process, by changing any of those elements and getting the person to think about it or see it in their mind in a different way, then that changes how they feel about it. And so then when they're out in the world, seeing that external stimulus, like a beard in this case, or stepping on an airplane, or seeing a glass of whiskey if they're recovering from drinking alcohol, those things no longer evoke that emotion, whether it's escape or avoid, or give me more, I gotta have it. And because there's the thought and the feeling has been rerouted or cut, they just don't go that way anymore. And so that's how you can change the ultimate behavior, usually very quickly, by just changing the way they think about it. So that can be done through language. It can be done through imagery, because the imagination and emotion is the language of the subconscious. And so when I work with people in that way, they are consciously aware of what I'm saying and I'm asking them to do in their mind. They have to choose to follow my instructions, of course. If they fold their arms and they're like, I'm not going to do what you want, I'm not going to let you hypnotize me or influence me or whatever, then guess what? They win. Well, they lose in the long run, but they're correct, because I can't make them, but I know what to say and to have them do to get the outcome they want. And if they play ball, like a dance, I lead, they follow, but we both have to want the dance to continue for it to work. And when one of us says, okay, we're done, the dance is over. But as long as we're dancing, we can have that experience and create whatever change we want to create. And change can happen very quickly. So the brain remodeling, the neuroscience involved in some of our work, especially trauma, in a process called memory reconsolidation, which is a natural phenomenon that happens anyway, we just direct it. It changes immediately how the brain is organizing that information that the person wants to change. And once that happens, I'd say 95+% of the time, whatever change they've noticed at the end of that session, meaning they're no longer emotionally aroused by that, by that memory, let's say, 95+% of the time, that's there indefinitely. It's the new state of the brain. And so that's where change can happen in minutes, and that's why usually the work is very fast. And if trauma is the cause of their anxiety, and the anxiety is the cause of their addiction, let's say, then by clearing their trauma, the primary reason the anxiety is there is gone. So the anxiety goes away. And if there's no anxiety, then there's really no need to drink or take drugs or overeat. And so the whole house of cards collapses because you pull out the main support, which is usually unresolved trauma.